today's topic is how I go about lighting the portraits for my Tattoos of Asia project. Alright guys, so welcome back to Seoul. This is Dylan Goldby again. Today I'm going to walk you through one of my personal projects, which is the Tattoos of Asia project. For those of you who don't know it, it is a document of the last remaining facial tattoo cultures of Asia. And so I'm basically going around and trying to find as many people as possible who throughout history have tattooed their faces for cultural reasons, and just hear their personal stories and turn that into a final collection of faces and stories. So one of the questions that I get quite a bit when I post this work, when I talk about this work, when I share it with people, is just how I go about lighting it. And it's rather simple once you actually take a look at it. It's typically one, sometimes two lights, and because of the amount of movement that we're doing and the amount of places that we're visiting, I chose to use flash to make sure that I could keep a certain consistency within the images, and I chose to keep it very simple so that my kit wouldn't get too large. Okay, so today I'd like to run through three basic things. The first is the choice of style, the second is the choice of camera system, and the third is the choice of flash system. So we'll take each of those and just kind of break them down very quickly, and then at the end of the video I'd like to leave you guys with a few short clips of kind of the making of these photos, and then I'll show you the actual finished photographs with the EXIF data and all of that sort of stuff at the end. So as I mentioned, one of the reasons that I chose this particular style was for consistency of imagery. I knew that I would be traveling to lots of different villages, countries, be in different situations when I photographed everybody, but I wanted to come back with a consistent look to the images, so I chose to use a flash and a dark background to ensure that you would simply focus on the people in the photograph and not what was around them, or not on a different kind of light that was used at a certain location or something like that. And the second reason for using this particular style was that I wanted to have a certain modern feeling, a certain link to the modern world. I mean, these people do live here and now, and so I didn't want it to look very old-timey. I wanted to make sure it looked very much a part of the modern world, which is very much who these people are. So that was the choice for style. And so the second thing I want to talk about is the flash kit. Now, this is, again, very simple because we're traveling long way out. We don't have the opportunity to, charge a lot of batteries or get access to electricity all of the time. And so I wanted to be able to travel with a small kit that was lightweight but also easy to maintain. And so I kept it to one flash plus a backup flash. And occasionally, we'd use both of those in one frame, but for the most part it's a single flash that you're seeing in most of these images. And we have another one just in case that one happens to die, and I take two identical flashes to make sure the batteries and all of that and the look is all exactly the same. The next thing is I'm taking a large light source with me, so a large modifier. And in the beginning that was a Photek Softlighter 2, the big version of that, but I stopped taking those after a couple of trips when the travel and the weather and the things we were putting it through destroyed them very quickly. And so they're not expensive by any means, but they're not exactly a cheap modifier, and at about $160, $170 I think, destroying one of those doesn't feel great. And so I started taking a very large shoot-through white umbrella with me, and those at about $40 or $50 for one of the same size. It's a little bit easier to stomach when at the end of the trip they've got rips in them and holes and just need to be replaced. So the actual difference between a softbox and an umbrella for this project really wasn't a huge issue, so I could easily substitute for that. So in the beginning of the project, I started out by using the Fuji Film X-T1 and X-T10, and at that time there weren't really any good solutions for remote flash triggering that supported the Fuji Film system. And so you either had the Fuji Film flashes, which at the time weren't particularly good, or you had access to manual flashes. And so I had a good collection of Nikon SB800s from my time shooting Nikon cameras, and those are fantastic flashes. I mean, they're almost impossible to kill. They run on AA batteries. They put out a decent amount of power. So I took 2 of those on my first trip and a set of SMDV FlashWave 2 triggers. And what that meant, however, was that I was shooting entirely manual flash, and I was limited to my sync speed on my cameras because I couldn't use high-speed sync. So I was taking a few ND filters, and it was always a bit of a hassle because I'd have to screw in the correct ND filter, and I would have to teach somebody to be able to hold the flash but also use it. So my guides, or a villager who was interested in what we were doing and wanted to help, I have to teach them that when I went like this, they'd have to go up in the flash power and down and all of that. And that was a little bit of a hassle in terms of, every time we went out to shoot we had to start that again. And so when Godox released their set of flash triggers, the X1T and the X Pro triggers, those basically changed the game for me because it meant that I could just literally have somebody hold the light stand. Once it was all set up, I could remotely control it from the camera and we wouldn't have to worry about that. And they also gave me access to high-speed sync, which means I didn't have to worry about ND filters and all of that sort of stuff anymore. So Godox made it very, very easy. Started out with the AD600 as my primary flash, but traveling with that, because it's so big and heavy, became cumbersome very quickly, and I moved to the AD200 the moment they were released. And I got 2 of those, and they sit in my bag where the old SB800s used to sit, and I have a backup flash. They're the right power, the right size. I get 500 full power flashes out of them. They're fantastic. I'll have a detailed video coming up about just why I love those and how I use them, but for now, yeah, that's kind of what I'm using now. And as I mentioned, these are all Fuji Film cameras, and so XT1, XT10, XT2 was using for most of the project, but then when it came up to my trips for India and for my second trip to Myanmar, thanks to Fuji Film Korea, I was able to take the GFX with me, which, although was a little bit slower, was roughly the same as going back to my XT1 anyway, so it wasn't a real big issue, but the files from those cameras are just beautiful, and my goal here is to record these people for future generations to be able to see, so why not have the highest possible quality? Okay, so the one other thing to note is that the portraits that are shot on black here, that background is sometimes the depths of somebody's house that are being turned black by the fact that I have a lot of light on them, and sometimes it's a sheet of paper, sometimes it's a sheet of material. It's whatever I could pick up in the market to be able to basically block things that I don't really want in the background from being there. Okay, so aside from the style reasons, the other reason for using this black background is that I really never know where I'm going to meet somebody and just how mobile they're going to be. Rather than move an 80 or 90-year-old woman to a location that works for me, I'd much rather have her remain seated in her chair and just be able to dangle a piece of fabric behind her and still get the result that I'm after. So that is a really good reason to simply carry that piece of fabric with me. Okay. So in terms of the environmental portraits, I'm using exactly the same setup. It's one flash on a stand with an umbrella or a soft lighter, and I'm just adding one more element, which is balancing the available light with the flash that I brought with me. And I'll go into a lot more detail about that in an upcoming video. So I'm going to have plenty more flash related content coming up, specifically flash with the Fujifilm system. So if you're interested in things like that, please subscribe, hit the bell icon below to make sure you get notified about those. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. We'll have more every week. For now though, I'm going to leave you with a little montage of some of the shots from this project, and you can check out how they were made. So thanks again for watching.